Kristin, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is such a charming house, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
Well, we're so happy that you came to see us here in Madison. We love spending time with you guys. It's great, as always.
It's so beautiful and such a charming little town.
It is.
Can you tell me a little bit about the project and what your client was looking for?
So my clients actually moved here from Atlanta, obviously to get out of the craziness of Atlanta. Madison is adorable. It's definitely like a little bit of a slower pace of life, beautiful, historic homes, and you just have the great surroundings, lush greenery. So it's really, and they're very outdoorsy. So I think this kind of was a nice change for them.
And close to Atlanta still.
Close to Atlanta, so you can still get around. And it was kind of central to where their family was located. Kids finishing college at UGA, so it was kind of a perfect spot for them.
Tell me about the house. Did they renovate, or was it decorating only?
For us, it was really decorating only. It was really kind of coming in and helping. My client has kind of a great eye, and she also is very into, she likes going antiquing and stuff. So we had a lot of great pieces to work with. But it was just helping to kind of pull those rooms together. There were some big challenges. So I think that was sort of, the reason that they sort of came to me and said, help us finish this, help us bring it to the finish line. Yep. So.
I love this room, and this was one of the first ones. I mean, the room that really was a wow moment, I thought.
Yes.
Because of the dark wallpaper, that earthy color palette, though, feels so natural for this, I think, location. So walk us through this room and the challenges that you mentioned and the choices you made.
So, initially everything in the house was kind of just painted neutral. And I'm not a neutral girl. If you've seen any of my other work, this is probably a little even subdued for me. But I think, the big challenge of this room is that it's sort of this central room. It is where they spend time together with their family, but it has, it's kind of also like a thoroughfare. I mean, you have access to the front hall, to the primary suite, to the guest bath, to the kitchen, and then out to the porch in the backyard. So it's like, okay, how do you get all the seating that we need so we can, be with our family and enjoy the space, but make it so you're not tripping over furniture. So, and then I think also, we wanted it to work for when it's just them at home. And then when the kids are visiting, we need it to be able to it needs to be cozy and intimate. And it also, so I think the color choice helps with that. I think when you do that nice, bold color on the wall, and painting the trim, and the fireplace the same, it sort of just wraps you up. And green, like you said, when you see the outside of the home and just the beautiful surroundings. And so green was just sort of a natural choice because it feels like you're bringing the outside in a little bit.
Yeah. And it works great with these like wood tones and some of the found objects, the pottery and the wood.
Well, and I think too, it's like we have some bold elements, but we also have, like the actual big furniture pieces are more like in neutrals, but you can kind of bring those splashes in to sort of dress it up. And just the texture with the rattan and the linens, everything kind of in the space had to be scaled properly, and we wanted to make it comfortable. So we, wanted them to be able to have something to put their feet up on. So we have these ottomans, but then where are you going to store them in a space that's sort of confined? So if we made the coffee table where we were actually like the perfect size to store the ottomans, and then we use this great reclaimed, we work with Auto Depot out of North Carolina, and he's got all this great like old wood. And so he's built a lot of stuff for us. And so this was one of the pieces, and it's just beautiful. And it sort of, it feels like it belongs in this home because like I said, she has like antique pieces and stuff. So it feels like it has a history, even though it's a new piece, it's old wood. So
So, okay, you mentioned that it's a room that's connected to basically every room in the main floor. And it had challenges with flow. So what were like the choices in the layout that made the flow possible, but still seating everybody?
So when we came to see the house, they actually had just purchased this sofa. And so, my gut reaction was a sectional would be really good here, but we're not going to, just throw out a perfectly good sofa. So we were able to work with the manufacturer and find that they had a settee that was part of their sectional series that we could do armless. So by doing that, we were able to make it feel like it was a sectional sofa. And then, but it is kind of nice because they are big readers, and they like to have a place to put their drink or their book. And so having a table that's sort of incorporated into the sectional feel feel, but it was the right proportions for the space. We also had some swivel chairs done, and they're totally custom because, they really had to fit the floor plan that we came up with to make sure that we could walk around them. They weren't too deep, but they're comfortable chairs. Again, it gives options for when you have guests, you're able to have a conversation area, but it really is and that's why working with a designer, I think, is helpful, because that's what's difficult sometimes for people, is really understanding scale and what a difference it makes. And you really have to find the right pieces to make a room work.
Right. So your swivel chairs, they can turn and face the TV.
They can turn and face
the other
conversation area. Yes.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and then even if you're expanding to more people, one day, hopefully there's, wives and husbands and grandkids and all that. And you have the ottomans you can pull out and people can sit on that, and it can become a big kind of area that they can all be together. Yeah,
I just loved how layered it was. And, even the dining room.
Yes.
And all throughout the house, really, you have done such a beautiful job layering wallpapers. And there's probably, 6 or 7 wallpapers on the main floor, which I loved.
Good thing wallpaper is back in vogue, right? Because I am a wallpaper junkie.
They add such a warmth.
They do.
Which I think when you're in kind of in a country house, a little bit.
Yep.
It really calls for that.
Yes.
But it's hard to do that when it's a small footprint and
right.
You don't necessarily
so exactly, like if you're walking through a transition space, if you have a pattern on the wall, it suddenly becomes much more dynamic, like the front entry hall. You can't fit a lot of furniture. You're not going to be able to do a lot with fabrics, because there's not really drapery and there's not, a chair or anything like that. So it gives you that kind of wow and makes it really interesting. It's just another canvas, another thing we can put things on. So yeah.
Tell us about the powder room, because any room that doesn't have natural light always seems so hard.
Right.
So how did you, tackle that?
Well, and that wallpaper is great because it has a brightness to it. The green, it's like a little bit more of almost like I would say like limey, so it has a brightness to it. And then with the neutral background. And then again, I think just adding, doing that whole wall of pictures really sort of adds, and it's, especially when you're walking through the space and you can kind of catch a glimpse.
Yes, I liked the way you did the pictures in there, because it may be kind of hard to tell in video, but that's where your eyesight's going to land if you're just walking down the hallway. And so it's such a bold, subtle but bold moment. And really
she had that whole collection. So that was just great. Then you see, you're like, oh wait, what's this? So again, it's like really being thoughtful about what you're doing as far as the little spaces that you might not think need that much attention, but it does make a difference, and especially in powder rooms, I always say that's a place that you can really have fun. You can kind of go over the top and, doing a whole wall of pictures, and then, having that paper and a great rug and sort of all the little details, where we have the towel holder, that's the rattan.
I love the little found objects.
And the little found objects that are in there. There's a great little shelf, that sits in the back that has a candle on it. All those little things, and those, are things that Julie had that we were able to use. So that makes it really special. But the dining room was really a lot of fun.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the dining room initially it felt a little more French. It was very like white and kind of stark. And just once we did this room, it was like, and there was warmth in the house, and I just felt like it didn't quite flow because it just felt too kind of sterile almost, So we found this great wallpaper. And it's funny, when you look at the print of the wallpaper, you would think that was sort of the dominant element in the room. But it actually almost reads more of like a little neutral. It's not an overscaled pattern. It kind of comes across because it's all over. So then we were able to really introduce kind of a bold pattern on the chairs. You sort of have that hierarchy with design. So you want something like, you sort of have a big pattern, you have a small pattern, you have a medium pattern. You don't want all big patterns or all small patterns, because then nothing becomes special. So
I just loved how the wallpaper and the rug and the chairs all flowed really beautifully and created this moodiness in there. But just seeing that, and I told you this, I was like, I could have never put those together, because you're right, the wallpaper does look like it would be so strong.
Right.
But I guess because of the colors, them being more tonal.
They are tonal.
It kind of reads
It does
a little
be
neutral.
more neutral. Yeah. So it kind of becomes a backdrop that then you can use all these other elements to play off of.
Yes.
So that's kind of that was fun. And it's a little hard to tell like when you're just standing in the room, but the wall covering actually does have a little bit of like this kind of like burnt sienna color. So that's why we were able to bring that into the chair fabric. So,
you know, the shapes that you used, the dining table, the chandelier, even the chairs around it are all a little bit like not modern, but they're very clean.
They're clean line. Yes.
And I think that is what provides that balance too. And it was just, it's perfect. It's pitch perfect in there.
Thank you. Yeah, and then we found that great trim just to add to the drapes because I do think, you know, there is that kind of balancing of it needs to be very finished and we want it to bring little details throughout the room. You know, it's that thoughtfulness, those little details that really makes design good, I guess.
Yeah, well, it helps the solid panel almost blend into the wallpaper, having that little bit of
Yes, it does. Yeah. So,
I love a moody dining room just because you're often in there
in the evenings. Yes,
and the little LED lights.
Oh, I know, those are the best.
Those
I
look great
those.
in there. Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys brought those. You've introduced those because
they look like they were.
Well, they tie in perfectly. You know, the chandelier is, you know, iron and gold, and then they have just that same sort of coloring, and it's just turning them on. I mean, candles are great, but these, I don't know, I'm just loving these LED lamps.
Yeah,
they're just fun.
They're fun. And
it's an ambiance, you know, it's just that level of light.
You can have candles too. I mean,
you can add it all in there, yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about, we kind of jumped past the kitchen, but let's talk about the kitchen because I loved how decorated it is. I think people always kind of forget to decorate their kitchen and they forget what the possibilities are. So tell us about what you did in there.
Well, my client has this great linen collection, so she has this wonderful hutch in there that you can see all of them, and you know, adding that, also we had the green glass jars and having that collection. Yes, so the kitchen is white, but I think when you have all these pops of colors, you know, and we went in and you know, we have the rattan shades, and then we did a valance over it and added a little jute trim to tie all that in. Again, it's that texture, it's that warmth. You know, we're bringing a lot of the same. I think what sort of unifies the home is that there's a little bit of that green in every room pretty much, or like some kind of earthy tone, which speaks to your surroundings, but it also becomes that kind of common thread throughout the home that makes it feel cohesive without being super matchy. Like, even though there's a lot of green in the kitchen, it's not that you would be like, oh, well, you know, it's just, you know, they basically did what they did in the living room and then just did it in the kitchen. It feels very different.
Yeah, it sort of gives you a little peek.
Yes.
You know, and if you haven't gotten here yet, or vice versa.
Right.
I was so struck by how important those window treatments were because in this grand scheme of things, it's kind of a small touch. Yes. But they really make all the difference in there.
They do. They absolutely do. And that's the thing with window treatments. A lot of times, you know, because they can be costly and you're adding all these different layers. And so people are like, oh, I don't, but it just, I mean, it just finishes the room. It's just hard to explain, but it really does. It just helps to kind of, and bring some softness because, you know, when you have like walls and trim and glass, you know, just adding that countertops and cabinets and wood floors, it's, you know, adding that. And again, in the kitchen, just like a hall or something, you're not going to have, I mean, we have chairs, but it's not like you're in a living room where you have all this upholstered furniture and you can bring softness in that way. So
there are only a couple ways to bring that. So that makes sense. She does have this great collection of, you know, vases and pottery and linens, which I loved. Tell us about that, and then also how you've sort of brought some of those things into the smaller spaces, the laundry room, the hall, and the powder room too.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. I think like all these little spaces like need to feel special as well. I mean, you know, I'm big into, you can put art in your laundry room. I mean, you spend time in there. You might as well enjoy it. It doesn't have to be totally utilitarian. And so this one, we went in and we were able to find this great, it's actually brick from an old Chicago building. And so we did that on the floor, which feels really, you know, cool. And then just by draping, you know, the laundry sink, it just makes it really pretty. And a cafe curtain and, you know, doing the wallpaper in the hallway outside. And, you know, it's just all those little touches that make these small spaces, and, you know, in places that like sometimes you're like, oh, well, you know, it's just like a walkthrough, but it matters, you know, it really kind of completes the home. So, yeah. And then just, I'm big into collections too. So it's great to have a client that also likes collecting things, because then just, you display them all together and it becomes sort of an art piece as opposed to just like, well, this is my vase storage, so.
Well, I do think it is hard to display collections in a way that doesn't feel cluttered. And the two of y'all have done that beautifully in here. I was wanting to walk around and take pictures of everything like, oh, this is the perfect way to show you off your napkins.
Right. So. I know, because again, those things are all pretty, and so why not see them?
Right.
I mean, the colors, the patterns, I'm just big into like filling your home with things that you love, and enjoy them. And so if that's, you collect napkins or you collect interesting wood pieces or whatever it is that you collect, let's put it in a way, display it, hang it on a wall, do something with it that you're able to enjoy it. If it's just all stacked up in a drawer, it's like a missed opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to fill that wall with something.
Right. Might as well be your collection. Passion, right? Yeah. This thing that you love. So
I love that. Tell us about the primary bedroom and suite, because you've
been to my house, and my house is like so.
If anyone has seen your home, which we saw in design school, it's bold, like eggplant purple, and it's so glamorous. It's quite a departure from the one here. Tell us about it.
Well, I think, we were talking about this, and I think part of what I love about with my room is I'm more of a night person. So at night, when you're in that room and it's that dark purple and it's sort of like surrounding you and it's bold and it feels very moody, because I'm up at night. My clients are actually morning people, and so they're up at, so I think, having that morning light and that really bright, crisp bedroom, and also just, everybody, what's comfortable for one person isn't always the same for everybody. So for them, I think it's that, it feels very serene and it's clean and it's peaceful and it's, and that's what they need. And then, when you wake up in the morning and you have that great morning light and that really bright white bedroom, it's just...
It's a
different feeling, right? It's just a different feeling.
Well, there are patterns and layers in there, obviously more subtle than in here, but tell us about the layering and how you think about that hierarchy in a room where the patterns aren't necessarily the main attraction, like the dining room.
Right. Well, and I think in there, we did do a little pattern on the bed, because it's more of a consistent pattern. It's not like a big, geometric or something. It's like more of a small scale, that it reads more of a solid. So I think in rooms like that, that's when you're really looking at texture, like the linen drapes and like the really nubby linen accent pillows that we have on the bed, and just the softness of a throw blanket and the warm texture of the woods, and then we have a little pattern obviously on the lampshades. That are Ballard. So. I love those lampshades.
Those are
great. Yeah.
You have them in your room.
I do too. Obviously, it's like a repeat customer now. I try to make everything different for for each client, but sometimes if it works, you just got to bring it. But
well, I also loved the sort of, would you call it like slip covered headboard?
Yes, yep, with the ballet ties. Yeah, so that's really pretty. Again, that just adds a softness to that bed, and it's just a pretty detail. I think there's a lot of little pretty feminine details. Yeah, there's a lot of pretty details in this house, like little things like that.
You mentioned your own bedroom that's very different. And
it's not for the faint of heart.
Well, I love your glamorous, bold style, and I'm curious if it was hard to blend that with kind of that more country feel that is required out here in Madison.
Right.
Was that a challenge?
For us, it's always exciting working with clients, because at the end of the day, it's about their vision and us just helping to facilitate that. So we don't shy away really like, oh, well, that's not our style. My own home, I get to do whatever I want, and it can be over the top, and it's definitely not for everyone, but I love it and that's where I live, and that's where my son and husband are, and so it's good for us. For them, we wanted to create all these collections, and there is a little bit more traditional elements than necessarily like I would put in my own home. But, it's really at the end of the day, not about me. It's about helping to create a space for them to enjoy, surrounded by the things that they love.
Right. Well, it's so charming, and of course the outside is very idyllic.
Yeah, it's nice to come here.
Yeah,
it's nice when we make a day trip. And also my client is a wonderful cook, so she always treats us to lunch. So it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna leave. Yeah, I might just spend. It's so much more relaxing here.
Well, Madison is cute.
It's so cute. Yeah,
so
little
so
town,
nice to visit.
Everything. It is. Yeah.
I'm sure she was so excited to get to see how you imagined things that maybe she bought for something else. You know, it's always interesting to see how someone else is going to interpret or use something that you bought.
Yes. I mean, it's just, sometimes you're too close to it because you buy something thinking this is going here, and then you're like, oh, well, what about this, and what if we change this and put that? So it does help having an extra set of eyes sometimes. You want, always when you're looking through spaces, that's kind of even why in this room, I thought it was important to have a darker color because you are seeing through all these spaces. And so it's someplace for your eye to stop. Like if it's all the same color or there's no art on an end wall, like it's really important to look at those views from each space and see like, okay, what is that? What do we see through that doorway?
Right.
This is a feature, and it's good. So like this space, if you're looking from the kitchen, you're like, oh, wait, this sort of stops me before I go down to the light hallway, before I go into the lighter entryway. So it's sort of making moments that help your eye to focus, and really appreciate the room and everything that's in it. We love it, actually. It's fun to, you sort of like, feel like we're reinventing ourselves every time we work with a new client. Yeah. Because if I was just producing the same thing over and over again, I mean, what's the joy in that? Being a little challenged, being like, oh, okay, let me think about it this. And this isn't just my natural go-to.
So it's not necessarily about reining yourself in, but just choosing what's right for that space.
Right.
Yeah, that's a smart way to think about it. And I think even for our audience who's maybe wanting to do it themselves or thinking about hiring a designer, there's not one way to do it. There's endless options.
But you just have to be true to yourself. I always say that. Like, don't try to think about resale. I think that's my biggest pet peeve when I meet with clients. They're like, well, for resale, I'm like, we're going to do all this? Are you planning to sell? I mean, if you are, okay. But if you want to live here, this is where you're, creating the moments of your life. And this is what you should be surrounded by, everything that brings you joy and the memories from your travels with your family and, just anything that's special to you. So be true to yourself, be true to your family. Where a designer really helps is the spatial, because we're trained in floor plans and architecture and the scale and all of that. That's where that really can help you. I think, people are sometimes shy away from designers because they think, oh, they're expensive to use. But at the end of the day, you can actually cost yourself a lot of money and when you're making wrong decisions. Yeah. And so hiring a professional, if, and some people feel very comfortable in it and that's great. But if you don't, like it's worth talking to somebody just because, buying a bunch of upholstered furniture that then doesn't fit in your home is not inexpensive.
That is a costly mistake. Yeah.
So, you want to make sure, but and that's where they can help you. But but just be true to.
You've done a beautiful job here.
Well, thank you. It's been a fun project, and we love coming here. So it's not been hard.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Sharing this beautiful home.
I know this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
For more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Ballard Designs YouTube channel and follow us on social media.